Okay.
It's like, good morning, friends. On behalf of Madurai branch of SARZ and Madurai Sicasa, I would like to welcome you all for today's session. Today, we are going to see about different exam preparation strategy. And now I would like to welcome Sicasa Chairman C. T. Venkatesh sir, Abhinesh, branch chairperson C. Abhinesh Sri ma'am, and today's speaker Suryansh. I would like to request Sicasa Chairman to address the gathering.
So on behalf of Madurai, I take this opportunity to welcome our MBSARC chairperson, CA AP Abhineshwari madam, and also I welcome guest of honor, ex officio member of Madurai branch of ICAA and SARC chairman, CA Jain sir. Now, special today's speaker, CA Suryansh, All India first rank holder in November 2019 exam batch. And I also welcome all students, one and all. Thank you.
Now I would request a branch chairperson to address the gathering.
Thank you, Shanmugave. So, good morning, my dear students. It is very nice to interact with you, with all of you through this YouTube live stream mode. And I welcome our today's speaker, CA Suryansh Agrawal, all along from Noida. Welcome, sir. And CA Suryansh has secured first rank in India and all India level in CA final and also in company secretaryship exam and 27th rank in CA IPCC level. So it is a very great sir. So it is a very good opportunity for all of you to learn from him the strategy or methodology which is used by him for the exams. So I hope this session will be very useful to all of the students. So now the whole world is facing challenge due to this corona. So dear students, change this very challenging period into an opportunity for studying. So in this period, you can find more time to prepare for your exams. So study well for your exams. So you got a very vibrant Sicasa chairman, CAT Venkatesh sir. So whatever facilities you want or whatever difficulty you are facing, you can very well approach either me or your Sicasa chairman. We are always there to help you. So branch is planning to conduct more such online programs like this in the forthcoming days also, so that knowledge is gathered right from your doorstep itself. So I request all the students to kindly make use of this platform to learn it. So success begins with hard work and happiness begins with good health. So prepare well for your exams and don't go out and stay safe. Over to Shanmugave.
So, just a small introduction about today's speaker. Our today's speaker has a prolific academic records, and to start with, he has completed his Bachelor of Commerce graduate from Sriram College of Commerce in Delhi, and he has secured All India 27th rank in IPCC. And the interesting thing is, he was pursuing second year of college while pursuing IPCC. So he didn't give up in both the things. And the next thing is, he's All India rank 1 holder in CS professional exam, and he is All India rank holder 3 in CS executive exam. And in the last November 2019 CA final exam, he was All India rank holder 1. To start with, just to some of the other, like he did the articleship in CA Butley Boy and Co LLP firm, which is an ENY affiliate firm, and he's also a solo traveler, and he has a lot of other more like interesting things in as his passion. So I welcome you, sir, and the whole session is yours, sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for that warm welcome. Okay, so first of all, I would like to welcome everybody who is here for the session, and I would like to thank the Madurai branch for inviting me over, and the Sicasa chairman. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. And okay, so without much delay, I think I shall begin with what all the students are willing to hear from me now, the preparation strategy. So I'll just share my screen and I'll share a small presentation with everybody. So just a second, I'll share the screen and then we'll begin with our strategy for preparation of CA final examination. Okay, so the thing is very simple. If you have to clear CA final examination, what is that one thing that's the most important? The answer is simple. It's hard work and smart work. I mean, not only hard work and only smart work. These are the only two tools which are, when used in conjunction, can help you to achieve success in the CA examinations. That is something which we all are already aware about. Okay, so I have divided my entire presentation into three parts. One of them is important do's. Then I'll be covering some important don'ts or the mistakes that most of the people that I've seen around commit. And then I will be discussing some subject-wise discussion for the CA final examination preparation. So the starting two sections, that is the important do's and the important don't section, they are common for all the candidates, whether you are a CA final student, whether you are a CA IPCC student, or whether you are a CA CPT student as well. And these do's and don'ts, they help you not only for the CA examination, but any other professional examination, be it CS or any other examination that you are willing to write. So for all these examinations at all the levels, these are some important do's and don'ts that I'll be discussing over here. To begin with, the important 4 do's. Okay, so the first and the most important do that I think has helped me really in a big manner to attain all the ranks and all the achievements that I've had is to have a proper timetable. So look, it's very important to understand that the entire syllabus of your CA examination, be it the final examination or the intermediate examination, it's extremely vast. And the biggest challenge that the people face regarding this examination is that even after studying for so many months and so many years, we seem to lose the control of the entire thing because we don't know what exactly have we studied over the past few months. So if I'm studying a particular subject today, okay, I'm doing good. I can remember that subject, I can understand the concepts well. But when I look at the same subject around 20-30 days after that, then I get blank again. So that is one of the problems that all of us face because of the vast content that is available and the vast amount of and the depth in which we have to study all the subjects. In order to overcome that problem, the only and only single solution is to have a proper timetable. And it's very important that in the last 120 to 150 days, that is 4 to 5 months before your examination, you have a comprehensive schedule, even before your examination preparations begin. So once you have a comprehensive schedule and plan, it will help you with two things. First is that it will help you to be on track, and secondly, it will give you a lot of confidence that okay, I have my things planned. So it's not like I'm going in any random direction. I'm going in a particular specific direction. And if I continue doing what I had to do for the next 100 days, 120 days, then right before the examination, I'll be in a good shape. So that reassurance which comes after preparing a proper timetable is extremely important in order to boost your confidence before the examination. So what I did was that I had a daily schedule. Like on the first of, let's say on the 1st of June, I'm studying law. On the 2nd of June, I'm studying law. On the 3rd of June, I'm studying DT. So I had a daily schedule that which all subjects I have to cover on which all dates for the last 120, 130 days. That is step 1 of preparing a proper timetable. The step two that follows and is equally important is to break your every single day into multiple shifts. Okay, so this is something which I have realized after appearing for so many professional examinations, that what it demands is to have a concentrated focus and concentrated energy over a tenure of 3 to 4 hours during the examination time. Because what we do is when we are studying, we usually study for 1 hour or 2 hours, and then we take a small break, and then again we study for 1 hour and again a 10-minute break. So even though that is fine in the initial days, but I think when your exams are approaching, it is very important to plan your day in a way that you are sitting for at least 3 to 4 shifts of 3 hours each, so that your brain is now has developed a capacity and has developed a capability to sit straight for 3 hours and focus on while you're studying. So that because focus again something which comes from practice. Like you can even meditate. People do a lot of meditation, all of this. That is nothing but just a practice to focus yourself. So instead of meditation, what I'm suggesting over here is to break your day into 3 shifts of 3 hours each or 4 hours each, and then take a small break. So that will help you to generate a capability to continuously focus for a period of 3 hours, and that will really help you in the examination. So first is to have a daily timetable of what all subjects you have to cover, and secondly, a topic-wise timetable for each and every day. That is also breaking into shift of 3 or 4 hours each. So that is the most important input and the most important do's that I have to share, because this timetable, if you follow this, it will be really smooth. The entire process, the entire 5-6 months of preparation, will be very smooth for each one of you. Okay. So the second thing now that I'll be moving on is regarding RTPs, MTPs, and scanners. Okay, so why are these important? We first have to understand that why are revision test papers and why are mock test papers or practicing questions from the previous 2 or 3 attempts, why is that important? Because you must have heard a lot of people suggest you to practice all of them. But again, we need to understand why. So one of the misconceptions that a lot of people has is that if I practice these questions and I'll get a question straight away from the revision test papers in the examination, that I will remember and I'll solve it. So that is wrong. That is very, very wrong, because that is not the purpose of practicing RTPs, MTPs or the previous year examination. But the purpose behind practicing the revision test papers or the mock test papers or the previous year examination papers is that you get to understand as to what the examiner expects from you. Because with the revision test papers also comes the solution. So focusing on solution is equally important as focusing on the question. So how do you have to attempt the revision test papers? Well, there are two alternatives. First is that you sit straight for 3 hours and write that entire paper and practice in a real examination based framework. So that is one way of doing it. And the second way of doing it, which I personally used to prefer, was to read the question, develop the answer in my mind, or scribble down the solution on a piece of paper, not fairly though, but just scribble down the answer and then look at the solution. Because you have to understand that this is not an examination that you're going through, but this is a phase of preparation where we are trying to understand how you have to answer a particular question, wherein you are trying to understand that where is that gap between what you're studying and what is being asked in the question paper. So in order to bridge this gap, it is very, very important to practice these revision test papers, mock test papers, as well as the past 2 attempt examination questions, so that you get a fair idea as to what examination questions would look like. Because okay, let me give an example. For example, in a subject like law, so what most of us usually keep on doing is that we keep on reading the provisions. Section 1 mein ye hai, section 2 is this, section 3 is this, section 4 is this. Now I know what all these sections contain, but I don't know how the question is supposed to come, because you are not going to get a direct question in the examination like mention the provision section 1. You are not going to get that particular question. So what you are going to get is a case study based question, a question which would involve some analytical or some or kind of an inferential question you are going to get. In order to bridge that gap between what you're studying and what is being asked, it is very, very important to practice them. So again, now one of the challenges that a lot of candidates face for this particular point is that they say, for how many attempts do we have to refer to these RTPs, MTPs? So what I have to suggest over here is that if you're writing your examinations in November 20, then the revision test papers and the mock test papers for that particular attempt are the most crucial, undoubtedly. And equally important are the RTPs, MTPs of May 19 attempt, November 19 attempt, and May 20 attempt, so that you can have 4 to 5 papers, and when you will go through them, it will be very easy for you. And an easier alternative and a more handy alternative to use this is to use a scanner of any trusted author. I'm not suggesting any authors over here, but there are scanners available in the market of any trusted author, which and they do nothing but they all they do is they just compile the questions of all these RTPs, MTPs, and past test papers, and they give it to you in a single. You get a single source of preparation. So that is all what the scanner helps you with. So we can use those scanners if you want, but again, practicing these RTPs, MTPs is of extreme importance. Okay. Now moving on to the third important do's that I have to offer over here. It is regarding the 15 minutes of reading time. So I hope that everyone of us is well aware that the entire examination of for CA final or for CA IPCs for the matter is a 3 hours and 15 minutes examination. It is not a 3 hour examination. It is a 3 hour and a 15-minute examination, wherein the first 15 minutes are given for reading the question paper. You are not allowed to write anything in your answer sheet in those 15 minutes, but you are handed over your question papers wherein you can read the questions, and that is to be considered as a reading time for your exam before the examination begins. Now, this 15 minutes is often overlooked by most of the candidates, but in my personal experience, these are the most crucial 15 minutes of your entire examination time. Now, why do I say that? I'm saying that because what I personally used to do was to utilize these 15 minutes of reading time for planning the entire paper. When I'm saying that I used it to plan the entire paper, that means I had to do 5 different things over here. One was I had to read all the questions and mark which of the question to leave out, because we all know that there is a choice of leaving out one of the questions. So the first question, the question number 1 is mandatory, and then out of the remaining 6 questions, you have to do any 4. Out of the remaining 5, you have to do any 4. That makes a total of 5 questions to attempt. So that choice has to be completed within these 15 minutes of reading time. So it's always preferable to start reading the question paper from the end, because the first question is anyways mandatory. So you have to start reading the question paper from the back side of it and then decide as to which question to leave out. Because after those 15 minutes, you're not going to put in any amount of energy into that particular question which you're leaving out in choice. So all your 3 hours effort will be concentrated solely on the 5 questions that you are going to attempt. So that is the first thing you got to do. The second thing is, for the questions that you have decided to attempt, you need to decide the order, because it is not mandatory for you to attempt all the questions in the numerical order. It is not mandatory that first we have to attempt the first question, then the second, then the third. No, it's not mandatory. You can start with any question, you can end at any question. The only important thing is that you have to write the question number correctly at the top of the page before attempting the question, so that the examiner can refer to the right question while is evaluating the answer sheet. So if you can do that, you can, the order of attempting the questions can be anything. Now the order of attempting questions is very important, because usually I used to prefer answering the questions with the answer that I know the best, because for 2 reasons. First, it took me a little lesser time to attempt that question because I know that question very well, so the speed automatically gets increased, because of which I have a lot of time left for the other questions wherein I had to put in some brainstorming and all of it. So I can save some time on the important questions. And secondly, I can get to the flow of writing the examination, because when I'm writing my examination, it is often observed that your writing speed in the first 15-20 minutes is lower, and in the last 15-20 minutes is very fast, because when you're continuously writing for 3 hours, then you tend to develop a pace and you tend to develop a flow of writing. So it's very important to start with a question that you know well and go on with it. So that choice of order of attempting the questions has to be made in the first 15 minutes. Also, the other thing which needs to be done in those 15 minutes is to mark the important adjustments, the kind of adjustments that you are bound to miss, because there are always some trick questions, some small little adjustments here and there that are very, very likely to be missed when you're reading the question in those 3 hours before answering it. So it's if when you're reading the question paper, you can just make a note of it. Okay, there's a particular kind of adjustment in the fourth question which I may tend to miss out when I'm trying to attempt the question. So I should mark this one. And when you're attempting that question in the next 3 hours, then you will automatically think about that small adjustment. Okay, I have to be careful with that adjustment so that I don't miss it. So all those little tricky kind of adjustments you have to mark in those 15 minutes. Because once that is done, so the next 3 hours you can completely use for execution, and all the planning would be completed in those 15 minutes. So it's very, very important and very crucial to utilize those 15 minutes judiciously. Do not make the mistake of coming late to the examination center wherein you are, just reaching the examination hall 5 minutes before the examination, the writing starts, or you are coming to the examination after these 15 minutes have passed. So do not do that mistake. Be there on time and utilize this 15 minutes to the fullest. That is very, very crucial for attempting the next 3 hours. Okay. Now the fourth important do that I have to offer here is complete all the coaching before leave. Now again, taking a coaching or not taking a coaching is something which is extremely subjective, and I cannot give you a general guideline as to for what all subject should you take a coaching, from where do you have to take the coaching, because that is extremely, extremely subjective. If I'm comfortable in a particular subject and I think that I can manage it by myself, then coaching is not necessary, irrespective of the fact that the entire world is going for that coaching. On the contrary, if I do not have comfort over a particular subject, I am not very clear and very thorough with my fundamentals, so the basics of any particular subject, no matter how easy the world considers that subject to be, if I need help, then I should attempt a coaching. That is a simple benchmark we should have to use. And the question you should ask yourself is, do I need a coaching for this? If the answer is yes, join it. If the answer is no, then prefer self-study. That is the only broad guideline which you have to consider yourself in. And do not follow anybody else that all the people are taking coaching for direct taxation issue, maybe I should also go for it. People are not taking classes for, let us say, cost management, so I should not go for it. So do not make those kind of mistakes. And once you have taken the coaching, you have to understand that coaching will not help you clear the examination. I know this might sound strange to some of you, but again, I'll repeat and reiterate that the coaching will not help you clear the examination. Coaching will only help you to clear your concepts and only help you to provide you a resource of preparation. But if you have to actually clear the examination, score well, and attain a rank, then the most important thing is self study. And you have to practice yourself, you have to do the revision solely by yourself, and only then it is possible that you will be able to attempt your examinations in a much confident manner. Now, because it's basic science, and all of us know that when you read a particular thing on your own, it leaves a much stronger imprint on your mind as compared to when you hear it from somebody else, because we all keep on hearing a lot of hearsay here and there so many times, but we don't tend to remember all of it. But what we used to remember for a longer period of time is what we actually read by ourselves, what we actually think about. So when I'm reading a particular concept by myself, I'm doing self-study, then I'll read that line, I'll think over it, I'll think of an example wherein I can apply those particular provisions. Then maybe I'll practice some on it. So when I do all of it, that would help me to leave a much stronger imprint in my mind. And that is which will, make your foundation and make your concepts so clear that when you are given even a difficult question to attempt, even then you will be able to answer the questions correctly because you have thoroughly understood the concept. So self-study is extremely important. And if you have to take any coaching, I would suggest to complete all your coachings and classes and be just be aware of what all is contained in all the subjects at least 5 months before your examination. Because for the CA final examinations, we get around 4 to 5 months of leave for preparation. All of us get that leave, and before which we are stuck in our articleship. So I know it's a little difficult to manage studies and articleship, both of them together. But what we can ensure over those starting 2 years tenure before the leaves begin is that we can complete all our classes and we can at least be thorough with all the subjects as to what the content is, what what exactly are the kind of questions that come with the examination, what are all the important chapters, what are all the important concepts in those particular subjects. So if you're thoroughly aware about the subject before you go for your study leave, I think you're good to go. And the last 5 months of study leave has to be completely devoted for self-study and for revision and practice, because that is what is going to give you the maximum return. Okay, so these were the 4 do's that are very important. First, and the most crucial, is to have a proper timetable. Second is to use the RTPs, MTPs, and the scanners. Third is to utilize 15 minutes of reading time most judiciously. And fourth is to complete all your coaching before going for leave and focus on self-study. These are the 4 important do's that I followed personally, and it has given me some really good results. Not in this particular examination, but constantly over the last 4 5 years in all the professional examinations that I've written. Okay, now what is even more important than those 4 do's is these 4 don'ts. They're the common mistakes which a lot of people commit. I also committed some of them initially, but then I realized that what I'm doing is wrong. So I shifted my methods, and this is something which has come from personal experience, from my personal experience as well as my friends' personal experiences who have suffered a setback in these examinations because of the mistake that they did. So I think these are the 4 don'ts that we should not do. First is not to change the material. Now, what I'm trying to say when I'm saying this is that, uh, look, for each of the subjects, for most of the subjects, we have to prefer the institute issued study material because that is the foundation, that is the base material for any sort of preparation. And even if you're taking a coaching class for a particular subject, those teachers also base their material on the institute material. So the material is more or less sorted for us. But again, if let us say I have decided that I'll be using the books and the resources of a particular coaching institute or a particular author or a particular publisher for this XYZ subject, then it's very important to stick to that particular material till the very end. Now, what a mistake that I've seen a lot of people do is that a couple of weeks, or let us say 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the examination, they talk to one of their friends, and a common conversation goes like this: "Hey, hi, how are you? I am preparing from this XYZ resource. Where are you preparing from?" And the answer comes, "I am preparing from this ABC resource." Now, what a mistake the most of the people do is that they switch their resources from XYZ to ABC, thinking that they have made a wrong choice. And if their friends are using ABC resources, they should also go for it. Maybe there is something in that ABC resource which I might not have covered. That is the kind of premonition, so that is the kind of fear that gets generated in the minds of a lot of candidates right before the examination, and they make this mistake of changing their resources. So this is a really, really big mistake to do. I'll repeat it, never do it. It's very important to, thoroughly choose a resource after all the analysis. So before choosing what are resources you have to refer, before choosing whether what particular exactly books or the publisher author that you're going to study from, before choosing it, you can talk to as many people as you want. You can take as many inputs as you want to. Talk to your seniors, talk to your peers, talk to your teachers, and then decide on a particular material. Okay, now this is something which is Bible for me, and this is something which I'm going to believe in till the very end, and I'm going to rely on this only. And till the very end, it's better to stick to that material, because again, this is also like, this is a well-known fact that if you keep on seeing a particular thing again and again, it tends to get stored in your memory. So let's say if I'm using a particular book and a particular provision is written on a left-hand side page right at the bottom. So when I keep on looking at particular provision at the same spot for multiple times when I'm revising my material, then it tends to, I tend to remember that better as compared to when I'm seeing the same provision on left side of a particular page and then maybe to the right top of the other page. If I'm changing my resources, so what I'm doing is that I'm not letting my visual memory to settle down, which is a very, very big mistake, because visual memory is the strongest memory, and it's very important to let that visual memory settle. So in order to have that, it's very important to decide your material judiciously before your examination days begin. And once you're done with that, throughout the 4 or 5 months of examination days preparation, just stick to that material and believe in it, because to be very frank, nobody can prepare 100% for the examination. I've never seen or never heard anybody who got a 100% result in CA final examination. You cannot do that. That is practically impossible, because you'll tend to cover something, you'll tend to miss something, because the course is really vast, and the best you can do is that whatever you have studied, you can study that well. If there's one small concept that might not be covered in the resource that you're using, then it's fine. Just let it be. It's better to be it's better to be well prepared with what you have done than to worry about what you have not done. So that is a simple thought behind it, but it's very important to stick to your material once you've decided, and to refer to the same material again and again in order to let that visual memory of yours settle in. Okay, now the second mistake, this is the most common mistake that all of us have done at some point of time. Even I have done this mistake in my IPGC preparation, and what I've learned from there is that I did not repeat the same mistake in my final, because this is something which is which is very, very natural, and it comes with all of us, that we tend to compare ourselves with others. But you should never do that, because it's important to understand that each one of us has their own schedule and pace, and constantly matching your preparation with your peers is just not advisable, because that will affect your natural ability. So I'll mention my own personal stance over here, because when I was preparing for my IPCC examinations, most of my friends, so we were a group of around 10 friends who were writing the examinations together. We were all together in the college hostel, and we were writing our examinations. So most of them found the paper on taxation a little difficult as compared to the other papers, because the taxation at IPCC level had both DT and IDT parts in it, and it is usually considered to be a difficult subject. But me, on the other hand, I have always enjoyed taxation as a subject, and I had a really good understanding of the basic concepts. And on the contrary, I found the paper on auditing a little more difficult. Now, in that scenario, the ideal thing which I should have done was to have devoted a little more time towards auditing than towards taxation. But because all my friends were studying taxation for a little longer, because they were giving, let's say, 15 days to taxation and 10 days to auditing, So I did the same mistake. I tried to follow them that if everybody is finding tax difficult, I should also put more focus on it. So I also gave 15 minutes for taxation examination, 15 days for taxation examination, but only gave 10 days for auditing preparation, which again was a mistake that I did. So do not be influenced by what other people do, what other people think, because you are the one who knows what your natural ability is. You are the person who understands you the best. You are the one who can only analyze the current level of preparation that you're standing at, and you have to make your own choices because this is consider this to be a fight wherein you are all alone. I mean, definitely your parents, your mentors, your seniors, they are there to advise you. But in order to win this battle, you have to fight this alone on by yourself. So it's very important to understand that and do not compare yourself with others. Okay. Now the third very common mistake when it comes to preparation, when it comes to the presentation of answers in the examination that is how do I have to write my answers. So this is one of the questions which I have come across very frequently in the last few months by a lot of candidates who tell me that even though we knew the provisions, we knew the concept, but we were not able to present our answers in a good way because of which uh, we did not score that well. So, like to be very honest, it's a given fact that the easier you make it for the evaluator to evaluate, the more beneficial it is. Because when an exam, always think from the examiner's point of view, from an evaluator's point of view, that if he gets these two answer sheets, okay. Now, these are very basic examples of what a common mistake a lot of people do. So, if I'm an examiner, I'm getting these two answer sheets, wherein on one side, what I'm getting is a page full of words. That is it. I do not know what is contained in those words, so I have to read the entire thing on my own. I have to comprehend, understand the whole thing, and then evaluate. On the other hand, I'm getting an answer sheet wherein it is clearly mentioned that this is the introduction. These are the relevant provisions, which is again being depicted in a point-wise format. Okay, A, B. Then the facts of the case are being presented, and then there's a conclusion. So, in order to write a theory examination, especially the examinations like taxation, wherein the theory or the case law questions come, or the law audit papers. So those kind of papers, it's very important to have a presentation of this sort because it makes it so much easier for the evaluator to evaluate, and it makes it so much easier for you as well to kind to explain what you're trying to say. Because a lot of people know the right answer, but not everybody can tell the right answer. So and finally, what goes in the hand of the examiner is your answer sheet. You are not present over there to explain him that you knew the concept well. You're not there when he's evaluating the answer sheet. All that is present with him is your answer sheet, and your answer should speak for themselves. So it is very important to avoid writing in big, clumsy paragraphs. Always make small pointers, make good headings, and give proper spacing. Make it easier, make it look neat and tidy. That is one very important tip that I would have to suggest over here. Okay. Now the fourth don't that I would like to say over here is do not discuss your paper with friends or talk to people at the exam center. Now, again, my personal experience, I've seen a lot of people who hang out with their friends before and after the examination outside the center, discussing how the paper went, what were the different questions, how difficult were they, how easy were they, what all did they get right, what all did they get wrong. Simply avoid doing that because once you're out of the examination center, you have absolutely no control over what you have done in the last 3 hours because that is sealed. Now that is your fate is sealed in those examination papers, and you cannot do anything about it. All that you can do to yourself is to demotivate yourself by discussing the paper and thinking about, oh, I did that mistake. I could have done that better. So if you don't discuss the papers after coming out of the examination center, all those thoughts will not even crop up in your mind. So it is very important not to discuss your paper when it ends. That is so given. And the other thing is also when it comes to hanging out and talking to people before the examination. Now again, this is something very personal, and a lot of people they think that it may help them to freshen up their minds, to a small chat with their friends, and all of it. But again, personally, I used to prefer to avoid all sorts of distractions and prepare myself and save all the energy for the next 3 wonderful hours long battles because Again, remember that it's a 3 hours 15 minutes battle that you're going to fight and not a 3 hours examination, because those 15 minutes are extremely crucial. So it's very important to save all your energy. So avoid all the chit chat and the unnecessary clatter right before the examinations as well. But again, this is something very personal. But when it comes to discussing the paper after the examinations are over, that is a strict no-no. You cannot discuss your paper once you're out of the examination center, and you only have to focus on your next examination. So that is the other don't. Okay. So I'll just reiterate on the 4 don'ts that I mentioned over here is: first is not to change your material. Stick to the material that you have chosen first. Do not compare yourself with others. Do not attempt answers in clumsy big paragraphs, and do not discuss your paper. So I think that was the general do's and don'ts for all the applicants, for all the candidates, whether for CA final or for CIPC. For all of us, it's very important to understand these do's and don'ts. And these are some of the points which you might not have heard for the first time. You must have heard it before as well from some other person. But again, it's very, very important to acknowledge these facts and to get these do's and don'ts into practice, because if you think that you'll be able to do this right at the examination center, that again is a myth. That's not possible. You have to practice all of it while you're preparing for examination, in your examination leave, when you're writing a sample paper or a mock test paper. Then it's very important to focus on how, not only the fact that you know the correct answer, but also on how you're presenting your answers, that you are writing your answers in small pointers, you're not putting big clumsy paragraphs, you're not overwriting and cutting a lot of stuff. All of that has to be practiced while you're preparing. So it's the sooner you start, the better it is for following all of those do's and don'ts. Okay. So that brings me to the close of my first segment of the important do's and don'ts. And now I'll be moving on to a subject-wise strategy for the CA final examinations. Again, this is kind of specific for the CA final level, but because the subjects that are there at the IPCC level and at the final level are similar, and so I think the subject-wise strategy will also be equally helpful for the students at the IPC level as well, because what I'll be telling about auditing over here is equally applicable to auditing at the IPC level. So I think all of us can try to learn something from these small strategies for each of the subjects. Okay. So I'll be starting from the first subject in the CFI, which is financial reporting, which is often referred to as accountancy in our normal day-to-day language. Okay, so the first point that you need to acknowledge and need to, understand over here is that the module or the institute study module is to be considered as a Bible, because you may take coaching if you want to have a better understanding of a particular concept, of you may attend the classes that are organized by the institute, or you may even go for some personal coaching. That's completely a personal choice, but it's very important to take and to refer to the institute study material, because that is to be considered as a Bible for all of us. And the concepts which are given over there are extremely comprehensive. They're easy to understand by themselves. The questions over there are very, very interesting, very, very comprehensive. And when you keep on practicing those questions, it helps you to prepare for the level of questions that you're expected to see in the examination. Because I can practice 100 questions out of some other resource, which might be easier. And I may think that, okay, I have done a lot of practice. I've practiced 100 questions. But have I practiced even a single question of the level that I'm expecting at the examination? The answer is no. But when I'm using the correct resources, when I'm using my study material and I'm practicing these questions, so I know that all the questions that I practice, they correspond to the level of question that I'm expected to find in my examination. So that is the first point, that the institute study material is to be considered as a Bible. Okay. Now, practice in financial reporting is very important, because there are some usually long questions, and one of the bigger problems that we face over there is of space management. Time management, okay, it is an issue, but that is something which we are all aware about. But what we tend to miss is space management. Now, what I mean by space management is that in order to attempt a full-fledged holding question, let's say a question on consolidation. So if I have to prepare some supporting notes to it, then I have to prepare a balance sheet. I may have to calculate my goodwill reserve. I may have to make some other adjustments. So how do I do that in an examination? So unless and until you practice a few full-fledged sums from each of the chapter, you won't be able to do that. So it's very important for you to understand and to develop it in your mind a particular flow of how you're going to attempt the question. So what I do first was I'll start with calculating the goodwill. Then I'll leave some space over there for some other adjustments or some other notes that I have to prepare. And then I'll be making my balance sheet. Once I've made a balance sheet, I'll be leaving some space over there because there might be an additional item that I have to add over here. And then I'll be going on to the notes to account. So that particular format or that particular flow that can only come from practice. And if you do not practice any full-fledged sum before the examination, you will struggle big time in examination to put the entire answer together. So you'll be stuck in a place wherein you will know what the answer is, but you won't be able to present that in a good manner in the examination. So in order to avoid that, it's very important to practice some full-fledged sum and maintain that flow as to how you're going to attempt a particular type of question. Okay, now the other important thing in financial reporting at CA final level is that we used to put I've seen a lot of people who, what they do is they tend to focus a lot on some concepts and then tend to neglect some other indices. For example, the index on holding consolidation gets the most attention. The indices on financial instruments, people usually focus on them. But what they tend to miss is they usually neglect the assets and the liability based indices. The indices like employee benefit expenses, or let us say the indices of property, plant, and equipment, impairment, or let's say intangible assets, inventory. These are some extremely important indices which we often seem to neglect when we are preparing because we are focusing more on the other ones. So do not make that mistake. Every index is equally important. You have to ensure that you are thoroughly prepared. 100% coverage is advisable, and selective study is not the right way of attempting or approaching the CFL examination. Okay, now the next thing under financial reporting is that it's very important to focus on the newly issued indices. Index 115, 116, these have been newly issued, and even there are a lot of everybody is talking about them, not only the examination point of view, but even once you clear your examinations and sit for any kind of a job interview. So one of the most common questions that I have faced in all the job interviews that I've seen after clearing examination was were based on India's 115 and 116 because these are the newly issued concepts. The industry is also talking about it, and not only from the examination point of view, but even from your interviews preparation or the life after examination, the newly issued indices, they are extremely crucial. And yeah, financial instruments, again, it is one chapter which I have heard from a lot of people that they find really confusing and really difficult. But trust me, financial instruments is the most easy chapter. The only thing that you need to do over here is that you need to get traditional way of accounting out of your mind, because the most common problem that I see people facing is that all these concepts of FVTTL, FVTOCI, and the entire discounting thing using the using the present value of things. This is something which we have not done at our ITC level. I did not do any of this at my ITC level because I think after the introduction of the financial instruments indices, our entire accounting has seen a significant change. So it's very important to get the traditional methods out of the mind and think from a very logical point perspective and try to understand the basics and the logic behind everything that we do in financial instruments. And once we are thoroughly aware of it and once we understand that, trust me, you will find this to be the most interesting, the most easy chapter out of all the other chapters in accounting. And the concept of hedging, be it the cash flow hedge, be it the fair value hedge, these might sound very heavy, but these are really easy once you understand the basics behind them. So try to focus on the basics, and once you're very clear with your understanding, then this chapter will be a cakewalk for you. Okay, now going to the next subject, which is the subject on strategic financial management. Now, again, one of the points that I mentioned over here is that the practice is very crucial. Now, why the practice is very crucial over here is that because, like I mentioned, the second point, that it is very prone to silly mistakes. Now, what I mean by that is that when I'm trying to answer a particular SFM question, it is very, very common for me to miss a particular thing. Let's say if I'm solving any question on the foreign exchange, or yeah, let us say if I take foreign exchange for example, so I can do mistakes with using the bid rate or the ask rate. When to use the bid rate, when to use the ask rate. Those are very, very small mistakes that you might end up doing an examination if you have not practiced before. Because those are very little small things, and most of us will know as to when do we have to use a bid rate, what an ask rate is. We all know that. But when it comes to applying that in a particular question, because we have not practiced enough, we tend to make those really small mistakes because which the entire solution gets affected. So you don't have to make that mistake. You have to practice some of the questions in SFM. That is very, very important. And in order to avoid these silly mistakes in the examination, and the questions have to be read carefully. Uh, why I'm saying that, because in my particular attempt, there was a question wherein which a lot of people would term it as a trick question, or they would say that it was a confusing question because they had given us some particular inputs, and uh, which was we can only be comprehended in a correct manner if you read the question carefully. Otherwise, it is highly likely that you will follow the wrong path and it will take your solution to the wrong direction. So you can expect such kind of questions in your examination, which will maybe still a little difficult, a little confusing, a little tricky. But in order to get them right, it's very important to read the question carefully and then only start attempting it. Because also one of the common mistake a lot of people do is that once they read the initial one or two lines of the question, they tend to think, okay, it is that question which I've seen over there. That is the kind of thought which comes into our mind. Okay, it is the same question that I practiced 10 days back. Okay, and they start solving the question exactly in the same manner as they did earlier. But that's not always the case. There might be small, slight modifications to the question, because of which the entire question might be very different than what it might appear to you. So, in order to avoid making those mistakes, read the entire question till the end carefully and then only start attempting it. Do not jump to solving a question. Now, and again, another important thing is to take comfort in using the calculator. So, like it's very important for each of us to understand over here is that when we are using a calculator, so I mean very small things as to which hand do I have to use when I'm using my calculator. Somebody might prefer using their left hand, or somebody might using to prefer their right hand. Where do I actually place my calculator in the examination so that it doesn't affect my speed of calculating? So all of these also come from practice. So you have to be very, very comfortable, very, very friendly with your calculators, and all those small, big calculations that you have to do, be it, uh, I mean, usually for the questions wherein you'll have to find a logarithm of something, you'll be given the values in the question paper. But let us say the question paper misses those values, then you should know how to calculate those values in your calculator. So we can use those small tricks which are over there in order to find the logs of the particular number or all of it. So you can you should be very, very handy in using a calculator, because and you should always keep it by your side when you're practicing, when you're studying during your examination preparation. And do not do the mistake of just taking out your calculator and straight away taking it to the examination center. Be extremely friendly with it before the examination begins. And for SFM, again, very important thing is that under the old syllabus also, most of the concepts are very similar under SFM. I don't think the subject has gone some very significant changes. So under the new course as well as the old course, it is advisable to practice the previous year questions from both these papers, because I mean it is possible that the old course examination of November 18 might have had a question which may reappear in a new course examination, let's say in May 20. So that may be a possibility. There may be a particular concept which is being covered in the old examination paper, and if you can practice that, that will be really, really helpful. So practice the questions from both the old and new courses for SFM. The subject is extremely scoring. Also remember that, because it will help you to make the aggregate over 50% for this group. So this is one of the good scoring subjects wherein there are people who have scored really good marks in it. There are people who have scored more than 90 marks in the examination. So I think it's a scoring subject, but all it needs is a lot of practice and a lot of care when you're trying to attempt those questions. Okay, So the next subject would be about auditing. So the standards are the base of the entire subject. We all know that. And yeah, so one of the important things in an auditing paper is to, in order to make your auditing paper look a lot more professional, it's very important to use the right phrases. So you cannot say, for instance, a good evidence. You have to use the phrase sufficient and appropriate evidences. Or you cannot say that financial statements give a correct view. You have to use the phrase it gives a true and a fair view. So these small keywords, these small phrases, which are audit specific phrases, this will help you to make the entire paper look a lot more professional and a lot more convincing for the examiner to read. Because if I am evaluating a paper and get two papers, one of them mentions the correct view, one of them mentions the true and a fair view of the financial statement, I'll certainly be a little biased towards the second paper. So that is something which you all need to understand. Then regarding the professional ethics part, it is very important. It is very easy and very interesting. That is like I would say that was a personal favorite in the auditing examination because it's extremely interesting. It's new for us because we haven't done this at the IPC level, and it's very easy. So if you can, be extremely thorough with the part on professional ethics, it will help you to score a good 10-15 marks in your examination. And yeah, other piece of advice is that the chapters on auditing the fiscal laws, be it the taxation, the direct taxation or the indirect taxation laws, it is always advisable to do them after you have read the DT and the IGT subjects, and then to come to it. Because if you directly jump onto reading these particular chapters, it will be a little difficult, and it will take a little more time as compared to when you have already studied your DT and IGT subjects. So if you're preparing for both the groups together, then I think this point is something we should follow. And you should first study DT IGT and then think and then read these chapters on fiscal laws, because that will make it a lot more easier and a lot more faster for you to complete these chapters. Okay. Now the next would be for law. For law, I think most of the people find this to be a very difficult subject, and I've seen a lot of people who do not score well in this exam in this particular subject. And the mistake that they do is that they don't think about applying those provisions when they're reading. So when I'm reading a particular provision, it's not only required from me that I will read the provision, understand it, and memorize it. No, that is not the end in itself. I have to think of a practical situation with every single provision that I read. That okay, when will this particular provision be applicable? If Mr. A does this, then Mr. B will do this, and then this section will come into play. So if you keep on thinking about each and every section, each and every provision in that manner when you are studying, so that is only when you will be able to apply those provisions practically when you get it in an examination. So that has to be done. Secondly, is that again a similar thing that when you're trying to bridge the gap between reading the provisions and the way the questions are asked, it is very important to bridge that gap. That is the link that most of us are missing. And you can use your practice materials, scanners, RTPs, MTPs in order to do that, like I mentioned before. Okay, now again, a very common question is how important it is to learn the section number and the section name. So the section numbers, again, learning them, it is not mandatory. Nobody expects you to learn all the section numbers correctly, but again, it is advisable. So it is advisable for two reasons. One is that if you remember the section number, then you'll be a little more confident when you're writing your examination. You can make your answer look a little more confident, a little more energetic. And the other thing is that when you are learning from section numbers, it helps you to get a flow of the entire topic. So let us say a small instance for the IBC law that we have. The section number 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They all flow. They all come one after another. So one is regarding your operational data. The other one is regarding your financial creators. So the entire flow of the topic, you can remember that flow using the section numbers. That is why also section numbers learning is kind of advisable. But again, this is not mandatory. You do not have to focus a lot on learning the section numbers. What is more important is that you understand the provisions and you are able to practically apply what that particular section is trying to say. And again, many other common mistake that a lot of people do is that they over focus on the company law part and they focus their entire energy on the company law and they miss out on the securities and economic laws. Do not do that mistake. The security laws, be it the SEBI law, be it the LOTR regulations, be it the FCRA Act and the economic laws, all of them, they are equally important as is a company law. So you have to understand this is not a company law paper, but this is a paper which covers the company law as well as security and economic law. So do not tend to neglect these concepts because they will have a fair share in the examination. Like a 40 to 50% coverage in the examination will come from this part. So do not do the mistake of neglecting them. Okay. Now for the next subject, it is the strategic cost management and performance evaluation. Again, like I mentioned for FR, the module here is a Bible. It is one of the most beautifully drafted piece of art, I would say, the SMP resource that we have available. It's really well drafted. The questions are so interesting. All the case studies are covered over there. They're explained in such great depth that you'll absolutely enjoy reading them. So use only and only a study material for the subject. Then for the case studies, it is very important to practice a little because what happens is that the cases are usually very long. So you will find a 2 or 3 page long case study. And the common mistake that we used to do is that a lot of people do here is that they do not read through the entire case study and they start attempting the questions. So again, that is not the right thing to do. It's very important to have a quick read at the entire case study, and if you can practice the case studies in the last 2 3 attempts, that will help you to develop that speed of reading the entire case and comprehending the entire 3 or 4 page long case study, so that you'll be good to answer the questions based on them. So that is very important. Also, there is a section on the BS portal which by the name of additional questions and additional case studies under the SMP subject. So if you can go there, I found that these sections were frequently updated by the institute before the examinations, and some of the other newer case studies were added over there. So you can always refer to them. They will be very helpful for you to prepare. And yeah, a very important thing here is to acknowledge the fact that it is not the same as the costing subject, because the costing subject that we had under the old course regime or the kind of costing subject that we have read under the IPC, that was a sum based subject. That was a numerical question answer based subject, as you can call it. But now this entire paper, it is more of a case study based, and the theory is equally important here because you have to understand a lot of concepts over here, the different measures of performance evaluation, the various business methodologies, the various theories, being the just-in-time system, the Kaizen system. You'll have to understand the theory of them as well. So theory is very important in this paper, and it is a case study-based paper. So you have to change that particular attitude of reading towards this paper. And the last is that for standard costing, again, this is some very interesting chapter, a very important chapter also in the final costing syllabus. And what a lot of people do a mistake over here is that they just tend to memorize the formula. But it's equally important to understand what you're trying to find using this particular problem. Because in an examination, you will not be asked to find XYZ variance. You will be asked a question in a manner as to advise the management as to how can they control their prices, or where have they gone wrong. Identify where has this particular organization gone wrong. So you have to analyze it, and you have to understand what is it you are trying to find using those formulas for standard costing. So it's very important for you to understand as to why behind every formula standard costing. That is very important, because you will not get direct question. You'll get a question in the form of a case study, and if you don't know that why, you will not be able to solve the question. Okay, so the next is direct tax. For direct tax, I would say that it is definitely the most lengthy subject of all of them, and because of the vast nature of it, it is an extra revision is usually required here, so that you can memorize the various limits of the provisions and all of it. So an extra revision and extra effort might be needed for a lot of people, but again, that is something which is very personal. You cannot ignore the portion of international taxes, because there's a fixed 20 to 30 marks definitely you are going to get from the international taxation portion. And this portion is very interesting. It is very new for us to study, because we are not very much aware of the concept of transfer pricing or all of it. So not everybody has an exposure, or not everybody has seen this during their articleship. This is something which is very, very interesting for us to read. So do not ignore this question. And yeah, for the case laws, as to how important it is to memorize them by name, again, not necessary to memorize all of them by name, but again, advisable, because it leaves a better impression in the mind of the examiner. And at least for the cases, the newer cases that have been added in the RTPs in your attempt, you can try and learn the names of those cases. That will be really helpful. But even if you cannot do that, it's very, very important to understand what the case was about and what the judgment has been, and what is the what are the corresponding provision under which the judgment has been passed. It's equally important to understand that as well. For MCQs, I think practice is the only key, because when you're reading the provision on any provision of direct taxation, it's very important to practice, make small sums for each of the provision, because you never know, you can find those sums in your MCQs as well. So make small sums, take any fictitious number, 100, 10, 20, 30, and whenever you are reading a particular provision, make small questions on it and keep solving them, keep practicing them. So that will help you a lot. And for the national tax, for the indirect taxation, I think this is again a very scoring subject. This is a very interesting subject because it is very, very new for the entire industry. And there are two parts to it. We need to understand that GST is a major portion of this paper, but then there is also customs and an FTP, because a lot of people, I see that they have been ignoring these portions on the customs and the FTPs in the last attempt. But if you do that, you will never be in a position to attempt your 100% paper. So that's not advisable. You have to give due attention to the customs and the FTP portion as well. For GST, because the entire law is still at slightly more important as compared to any other provision. And yeah, for GST, one of the very, very important thing is to understand that the concepts of supply, reverse charge mechanism, valuation, or ITC, place of supply, these are not independent topics. You have to understand that, because if you read them in isolation, each of these topics, you'll be able to understand the concept, but you will not be prepared for the comprehensive question like the ones you get in examination. Because in an exam, you'll get a comprehensive question which will involve identifying whether a particular transaction falls under the ambit of supply or not. It will involve you to analyze whether a particular transaction falls under reverse charge mechanism or a forward charge mechanism. Then you'll have to use the valuation rules to find the value, and you'll have to find the corresponding ITs that have to be utilized and find the amount finally payable. In order to do all of that, it's very important to to identify the various linkages between the subject, between these chapters, and to treat the entire subject as one single topic instead of various chapters. So do not break this subject into different chapters. Do not read them in isolation. Continuously keep on understanding the interlinkages between them, and practice some comprehensive question which will involve the application of concepts for all of these topics. And the last thing under indirect taxation would be to read the exemptions and the other circulars which are included, because 100% of the circulars which are issued are not included in the syllabus. So the ones that have been included, they are included for a reason. So we have to give due respect to those circulars and those exemptions, and we have to read them, because you can definitely expect questions come from them. A lot of people tend to miss this point and they do not read them too, because of which again you cannot attempt the entire paper, so you cannot score the highest marks. So it's very important that you have to ensure 100% coverage of all the concepts, and selective preparation for any of the subject is not advisable. 100% coverage has to be done for each and every other subject. Yeah. So yeah, that was all it. That was the presentation that I've prepared for you guys, and I think the subject-wise strategy would also have been helpful for all of you guys.
That was a wonderful presentation, Suryansh. I just have a small query regarding this. So, for new syllabus, they have different kinds of elective papers. What kind of elective paper would you prefer? Like, would you suggest? Like, how to face that elective paper? Any particular suggestion regarding that?
Yeah. So elective, I have deliberately not covered that in my presentation because everybody might have a different elective paper.
Yeah.
So, okay, so very important thing with respect to the elective paper is that to choose a paper based on your interest. Do not follow the herd mentality. If you're interested in international taxation, if you want to build a career out of it, if you think that you have a natural inclination towards that particular subject, then you should go for that particular paper and do not follow the herd mentality as to what all my friends are taking. I'll go for it. That is one common mistake we should avoid. Okay, now once you have decided your paper, I think for the elective paper, it's very important to practice at least the last 3 attempts paper that have been there. So you have to, because given the fact that these are open book examinations, and you also get 4 hours for this particular paper as compared to the normal 3. But trust me on this, this was the only paper wherein I found that 4 hours was not enough time. For every other paper, I was able to complete my entire 100% of the paper in the prescribed 3 hours. But in this paper, till the very last second, I was struggling to complete my paper despite the fact that we were given 4 hours for it. So now why does it get so lengthy? Because of 2 reasons. First is because the questions that you get over here are case studies.
Yeah.
And again, these case studies are long. These are not 1 or 2 paragraph case studies. These are good 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 pages case studies. These might range in from ranging from 5 to 10 pages. These are really long case studies. You have to first read through it. You have to understand the case study. Then you have to find the solution to it. And the second reason why it takes so much time is that if you remember something and you just write that in the examination, it is faster. But because you don't remember the exact provision, so first you'll have to open your book, you'll have to find the relevant provision, and then often you tend to copy a solution from the book. You have to copy the provision. So once you're copying or you're not writing from your own mind, it takes even longer. So that is why 4 hours is also like it's not too much time. It is good enough time for you to complete, but it's not too much time. That is one thing we should understand.
Okay.
And I think it's very important to practice at least 2 full-fledged papers wherein you are searching the entire questions in your resources so that you are a lot more friendly and you're a lot more aware of how to search those papers. Because like I took risk management for instance, and when I was solving my first paper in risk management, when I was practicing it, I could not find even a single MCQ on time because once I read the question, I was struggling as to in which chapter will this particular thing be. Then I will go to that chapter, and then I was searching for it. Wherein do I find the exact limit or the exact provision? So it was taking me a lot of time. But once I solved those 30 questions in the first paper, and then again 13 second and third papers, so by that time, I was so much familiar with my resources that I knew, okay, that this particular chapter starts from page 100. So I already have that in my mind. So if I'm using that resource a couple of times in order to practice some questions, so that will really help me to to kind of be a lot more familiar with my resources, and it will save a lot of time. So that is one thing. And again, other thing with respect to the elective paper is that the MCQs play a key to scoring the maximum marks because the other questions, these are the case study based questions, and you can never get a case study 100% correct. Like you may be able to cover the major portion of it, but then it is kind of wrong to expect that you have got a particular case study 100% correct because those are analytical based questions. There might be some points which you might tend to miss, but the MCQs they have a definitive answer. These are either right or wrong. So in order to score well, it's important to capitalize on scoring in those MCQs. That is again which something which we should keep in mind. And again for the subject, like I took risk management, I was very happy with it. It was a good, easy subject, a very interesting one, and that was something which of my interest. So I won't say that it is advisable to take that, but if anybody is thinking of taking it because they have an interest in it, then it's a really good subject, really interesting, really scoring, easier than a lot of other subjects. So it would help you to save some time when you're preparing in the last 5 6 months. You can use you can save a little time in the elective subject because you don't have to memorize all of it. You just have to be very thorough with your understanding, conceptual clarity, and you just go with it. So we can save a little time and utilize it for some other more difficult subject that you find. So that is something you can do. But I think, yeah, the most important thing is to practice at least a couple of papers before the examination.
Thank you. And I have another query regarding MCQs. So generally, would you suggest how do you plan your MCQs for 30 in our examination? Mostly every paper is having MCQs for 30 marks. So will you plan? We should plan whether at the first start or at the end.
Okay, so I'll share what I did personally. So basically, what I used to do was in the first 15 minutes, I did not refer to the MCQ paper. I only referred to the main paper, and I did all that I mentioned in the 15-minute section when I was talking about it. So I was thorough with the 70 marks paper in those 15 minutes. So as the writing time starts, I used to start with my MCQ paper then, and for the first 20-25 odd minutes, I used to attempt majority of my MCQs, which wherein I was kind of confident. If I know the answer, so I used to do all of them. So let us take out of the 30 MCQs, I was able to attempt around 20-22 questions in those starting 25 minutes. So now, after the first 25 minutes into my writing time, I know that I've scored around 20 marks in my examination, and I just need another 30 and 40 to be at a good pace. So I'll start with the comprehensive question, the subjective ones, and I leave the other MCQs for the end. I will not focus too much time on the other remaining ones, but I'll straight away hit the subjective answers, and I'll try to in the next 2 hours, 2 hours 15 minutes, I'll try to complete all of those papers, and for the last 10 minutes, I'll go back to my MCQ and make my the best bet that I can think of, because those are the questions that I am not very sure of. I do not know the right answer to them. The best I can do is to make the most logical interpretation and attempt it. So if you have to do that, you can save the last 5-10 minutes for that. Apart from it, around 20-22 marks you have sealed in the first initial 20-22 minutes of your writing examination, and it also helps you in a way that if you start with your MCQ papers, right? So you don't have to write much in that. You just have to mark the circles in the OMR sheet, and you have to complete the OMR sheet. So once you're doing that, in the first 15-20 minutes, you kind of get into a flow of writing. And then when you directly hit on your subjective question, the speed of writing automatically increases. However, on the other hand, if you start with your subjective answers, then for the first 10 minutes, you will struggle to find your pace in writing, because that is very natural. It happens in every examination. For the first 10 minutes, we struggle to find the pace in writing. So you can avoid that using MCQs. While you are attempting your MCQs in the initial 20 odd minutes, can you develop that flow, and then when you directly hit to the subjective question, you have that speed with yourself. So that was how you should do it, like what I know in the beginning, and then I should close those MCQs towards the end.
Great. Last question, just a small thing. Like generally, how many exams, like practice exams, are advisable? Because people are. Hello.
Yeah. So I think if I have to quote a number, I would say one per subject is good enough, because it's very important that you have to focus more on the quality than the quantity. If I appear for 4 or 5 papers, that won't help me if I'm not evaluating myself, and I'm not finding as to what are mistakes I'm doing. So like if I attempt one full-fledged 3 hours paper, and I know that okay, my writing speed is fine, but I'm struggling in this particular concept, in presentation of this particular kind of concept. So I have to practice more on that. If I tend to analyze that, if I get that insight after the first paper itself, I think one paper is good enough. But if I don't do that, then even solving 4 or 5 papers won't help anybody. So it's very important to, after attempting the paper, you have to evaluate yourself, like the kind of presentation like I showed in the for the theory questions, the analysis, fact, and intro, all of it. So I was always very confident about that kind of presentation. I knew that I'll be able to give that presentation in the exam straight away. So I did not practice even a single paper in auditing or law, but I knew that I will struggle with space management for accounting, or I will make some silly mistakes with SFM. So I used to do couple of questions, couple of papers for them. So it's again very subjective, and it's you should know as to what you are able to do now and what you are missing, and you have to focus more on what you're missing. Only for the elective subject, I would say that at least 3 or 4 papers have to be done, because that practice is very, very crucial for getting those MCQs, for finding those MCQs at the right space. So for elective 3 or 4 paper, for all of them, if you're doing it in a proper manner, I think 1 paper is good enough, and 2 or 3, if you're able to do that, is quite helpful.
What is an advisable routine during the time of exam preparation? Like, we are getting 4 to 5 months of preparation time, but many people find difficult to have a proper routine. What was your routine at your preparation?
Okay, my routine, basically, I did not used to study at night. So during the first 2 years of my articleship, because I was so busy with work, I only got time to study during the night. So I was a night person till that time. But once when I got my articleship leave from my articleship and was into the preparation leave, then I used to take a proper 8 hours sleep every day, because that is very, very helpful. Because if you're studying so much, it's a necessity for your body to have a good 7-8 hours sleep every day in order to absorb all that you have read during the day. So I used to sleep on time around 11. I used to wake up early around 6 7, and so like I mentioned, like I used to divide my day into 4 shifts of 3 hours each. So that in that way, I was able to manage around 12 to 13 hours of study, out of which my objective used to be to get at least 10 hours of effective study, because 1 or 2 hours will definitely be missed here and there. But in order to get 10 hours of effective study, around 12 to 13 hours is must. So, like what I used to do is I used to start at 6 in the morning. 6 to 9 was the first session. Then I used to session or have my breakfast and all of it till 9 to 10, and then 10 to 1 was my second session for 3 hours. 1 to 2 again lunch, and maybe a small nap if you want to have. 2 to 5 the third session. Then 5 to 5:30 you can go for a small walk, have some snacks, have some tea, and for 6 to 9 the other session, have your dinner and go back to bed. So this was not at all hectic. This is a very smooth kind of a schedule, which is very much manageable. But what I manage with the schedule is that I have 4 3-hour shifts, wherein I'm sitting at my place for 3 hours. I'm developing that capability to focus continuously for 3 hours period and preparing myself for the examination. I am not sleeping during the day, because we have to write an examination at 2 to 5 in the day. And it's a, there's a concept of body clock. I think it's there somewhere in the science that a body, tends to do similar kind of things every 24 hours. So if you're studying late at night, then you'll certainly take a nap after your lunch, and 2 to 5 that time you'll utilize in sleeping if you're studying late at night or if you're doing anything of that sort. But with my schedule, I was using that time of 2 to 5 every day to study. And more so, I used to practice in those, the third shift of the day, I used to practice, because I already had 2 shifts during that day, the morning one and the before lunch one. And in the third shift, I used to practice. So I was developing that capability of, practicing of solving sums in that 2 to 5 hours duration, like from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. I was developing that capability to practice sums in that time. And when I continued doing that for 5 6 months, then at the time of examination, I was not at all feeling sleepy, because sleeping at that time was not in my schedule. But had your schedule been like wherein you were sleeping at 2 to 5 every day, and then straight away on the day of examination you are made to appear for examination, so you automatically tend to feel sleepy during that phase. So in order to avoid that, it's very important to maintain a good simple schedule. Do not overstress yourself during the night. You have the entire day with you. So make 3 or 4 shifts of 4 hours each, 3 hours each. Take small breaks in between, but 2 to 5 the examination time you have to utilize that well.
Thank you so much for your patient listening, and special thanks to Suryansh for appearing here and uh, like sharing your knowledge and all your thoughts on this. It was really helpful, and we had a lot of new insights today. Especially me, as a CA final student, was able to learn new insights of preparation today from you. It was really helpful and thoughtful. Thank you so much. And I would like to thank Mother Branch and Mother Sicasa for arranging this wonderful session. Uh, I would like to thank our Mother Branch chairperson, C. Abhinay ma'am, and our Mother Branch Sicasa chairman, C. T. Venkatesh sir, and today's speaker who gave us a lot of insights and knowledge about preparation for exam. I hope everyone was benefited from this knowledge, from session. Thank you, Suryansh. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. We'll end up the session.
Yeah. Okay. One small thing. If anybody has any queries or need any clarifications, any subject-wise help or suggestions, so if you want, I can share my number. You can connect me on LinkedIn, Facebook, any other platform. So I'll be more than happy to help. So if you need any kind of help, any kind of insight, so feel free to ping me. You can find me on LinkedIn by the name of Suryansh Agrawal. You can just ping me over there, and I'll be happy to.
Yes,
Sure.
I'll share your number with the students. Yes, thank you, Suryansh. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.